I'm good, Tessa, if you want to give me a countdown. Hello, Internet. I am Angela. This is Reader's Corner, and you're watching me read from the Book of Dragons by Edith Nesbit. This is the seventh of, I believe, 8 stories in the series. Luckily, if you haven't caught any of these before, these are all standalone short stories, so you don't have to worry about catching any of them. There are little nods here and there to the previous stories, but very little, so you should be good to go. If you're here for the first time, welcome. I am, as I said, I'm Angela. I'm a voice actor and a writer and a creator here on Nerdsmith, and I love reading stories to people. I especially love reading fiction um, out loud. So I am going to be. Oh, hi, Chad. Thank you for resubscribing. 13 months, goodness gracious. Um, so, today we're going to be, as we've been for the last several weeks, reading through the Book of Dragons by Edith Nesbit. And as a thank you, I guess, partially for all the very, very generous assistance that we have been getting from our audiences the last month or so, in helping support some of our creators who specifically have lost jobs or wages because of the stay-at-home measures and the quarantine considerations. So we are raising money during some of these special streams during the week to give them a bit of a leg up as needed. Any Streamlabs donations given during the show today will be directly donated to those people who need it most from our network family. They give out incredible content, free for you to access, and we hope that you find it in your hearts to share and give a little back to them. I know that they really, really appreciate it. Even just a little bit really helps and lets them know that you're there and that you appreciate the work that they do. I know we do as directors. So, anyway, we are going to continue with our stories with the Book of Dragons. By the way, I've been looking at other books to read in later installments of Reader's Corner, and there are a lot of fun fairy tales and other things. I'm still debating what the nature of what I will be reading. I could stick to folklore and such, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. If you have any suggestions, especially if they're in Project Gutenberg, if they're free to use books, please let me know. I'd love to have a bit of a backlog of books to get to. So anyway, let us begin. We're going to start with Chapter 7 from the Book of Dragons, The Fiery Dragon, or The Stone of Heart and the Stone of... The Heart of Stone and the Heart of Gold is the alternate title. I'm doing great already. Let me... I promise it's just water. But let us begin. The little white princess always woke up in her little white bed when the starlings began to chatter in the pearl-gray morning. As soon as the woods were awake, she used to run up the twisting turret stairs with her little bare feet and stand on the top of the tower in her white bedgown and kiss her hands to the sun and to the woods and to the sleeping town and say, "Good morning, pretty world." Then she would run down the cold stone steps and dress herself in her short skirt and her cap and apron and begin the day's work. She swept the rooms and made the breakfast, she washed the dishes and she scoured the pans, and all this she did because she was a real princess. For of all who should have served her, only one remained faithful, her old nurse, who had lived with her in the tower all the princess's life. And now the nurse was old and feeble, and the princess would not let her work any more, but did all the housework herself, while nurse sat still and did the sewing, because this was a real princess with skin like milk and hair like flax and a heart like gold. Her name was Sabrinetta, and her grandmother was Sabra, who married St. George after he killed the dragon, and by real rights all the country belonged to her. The woods that stretched away to the mountains, the downs that sloped down to the sea, the pretty fields of corn and maize and rye, the olive orchards and the vineyards, and the little town itself, with its towers and its turrets, its steep roofs and strange windows, that nestled in the hollow between the sea, where the whirlpool was, and the mountains, white with snow and rosy with sunrise. But when her father and mother had died, leaving her cousin to take care of the kingdom till she grew up, he, being a very evil prince, took everything away from her, and all the people followed him. And now nothing was left of her all her possessions except the great dragon-proof tower that her grandfather St. George had built, and of all who should have been her servants only the good nurse. This was why Sabrinetta was the first person in all the land to get a glimpse of the wonder. Early, 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 while all the townspeople were fast asleep, she ran up the turret steps and looked out over the field. And at the other side of the field there was a green ferny ditch and a rose thorny hedge. And then came the wood. And as Sabrinetta stood on her tower, she saw a shaking and a twisting of the rose thorny hedge, and then something very bright and shiny wriggled out through it into the ferny ditch and back again. It only came out for a minute, but she saw it quite plainly, and she said to herself, "Dear me, what a curious, shiny, bright looking creature! If it were bigger, and if I didn't know that there had been no fabulous monsters for quite a long time now, I should almost think it was a dragon." The thing, whatever it was, did look rather like a dragon, but then it was too small. It looked rather like a lizard, only then it was too big. It was about as long as a hearthrug. "I wish it had not been in such a hurry to get back into the wood," said Sabrinetta. "Of course it's quite safe for me in my dragon-proof tower, but if it is a dragon, it's quite big enough to eat people, and today's the 1st of May, and the children go out to get flowers in the wood." When Sabrinetta had done the housework, she did not leave so much as a speck of dust anywhere, even in the corneriest corner of the winding stair. She put on her milk-white silky gown with the moon daisies worked on it, and went up to the top of her tower again. Across the fields, troops of children were going out to gather the May, and the sounds of their laughter and singing came up to the top of a tower. "I do hope it wasn't a dragon," said Sabrinetta. The children went by twos and by threes and by tens and by twenties, and the red and blue and yellow and white of their frocks were scattered on the green of the field. "It's like a green silk mantle worked with flowers," said the princess, smiling. Then, by twos and by threes, by tens and by twenties, the children vanished into the wood, till the mantle of the field was left plain green once more. "All the embroidery's been unpicked," said the princess, sighing. The sun shone, and the sky was blue, and the fields were quite green, and all the flowers were very bright indeed, because it was May Day. Then, quite suddenly, a cloud passed over the sun, and the silence was broken by shrieks from far off. And like a many-colored torrent, all the children burst from the wood and rushed, a red and blue and yellow and white wave, across the field, screaming as they ran. Their voices came up to the princess on her tower, and she heard the words threaded on their screams like beads on sharp needles. "The dragon! The dragon! The dragon! Open the gates! The dragon is coming! A fiery dragon!" And they swept across the field and into the gate of the town, and the princess heard the gate bang, and the children were out of sight. But on the other side of the field, the rose thorns crackled and smashed in the hedge, and something very large and glaring and horrible trampled the ferns in the ditch for one moment before it hid again in the covert of the wood. The princess went down and told her nurse, and the nurse at once locked the great door of the tower and put the key in her pocket. "Let them take care of themselves," she said, when the princess begged to be allowed to go out and help take care of the children. My business is to take care of you, my precious, and I'm going to do it. Old as I am, I can turn the key still. So Sabernetta went up again to the top of her tower and cried whenever she thought of the children and the fiery dragon. For she knew, of course, that the gates of the town were not dragon proof, and that the dragon could just walk in whenever he liked. The children ran straight to the palace, where the prince was cracking his hunting whip down at the kennels, and told him what had happened. Good sport, said the prince, and he ordered out his pack of hippopotamuses at once. It was his custom to hunt big game with hippopotamuses, and people would not have minded that so much, but he would swagger about in the streets of the town with his pack yelping and gambling at his heels, and when he did that, the green grocer, who had his stall in the marketplace, always regretted it. And the crockery merchant who spread his wares on the pavement was ruined for life every time the prince chose to show off his pack. The prince rode out of the town with his hippopotamuses trotting and frisking behind him, and people got inside their houses as quickly as they could when they heard the voices of his pack and the blowing of his horn. The pack squeezed through the town gates and off across country to hunt the dragon. Few of you who had not seen a pack of hippopotamuses in full cry will be able to imagine at all what this hunt was like. To begin, the hippopotamuses do not bay like hounds. They grunt like pigs, and their grunt is very big and very fierce. Then, of course, no one expects hippopotamuses to jump. They just crash through the hedges and lumber through the standing corn, doing serious injury to the crops and annoying the farmers very much. All the hippopotamuses had collars with their name and address on, but when the farmers called to the palace to complain of the injury to their standing crops, the prince always said it served them right for leaving their crops standing about in people's way, and he never paid anything at all. So now, when he and his pack went out, several people in the town whispered, I wish the dragon would eat him. Which was very wrong of them, no doubt, but then he was such a very nasty prince. They hunted by the field, they hunted by wold, they drew the woods blank, and the scent didn't lie on the downs at all. The dragon was shy and would not show himself. But just as the prince was was beginning to think, there was no dragon at all, but only a cock and a bull. His favorite old hippopotamus gave a noise. The prince blew his horn and shouted, Tally ho, hark forward, Tantivy! And the whole pack charged downhill towards the hollow by the wood. For there, plain to be seen, was the dragon, as big as a barge, glowing like a furnace, and spitting fire and showing his shiny teeth. The hunt is up, cried the prince, and indeed it was. For the dragon, instead of behaving as a quarry should and running away, ran straight at the pack, and the prince on his elephant had the mortification of seeing his prize pack swallowed up one by one in the twinkling of an eye by the dragon they had come out to hunt. The dragon swallowed all the hippopotamuses just as a dog swallows bits of meat. It was a shocking sight. Of the whole of the pack that had come out sporting so merrily to the music of the horn, now not even a puppy hippopotamus was left, and the dragon was looking anxiously around to see if he had forgotten anything. The prince slipped off his elephant to the other side and ran into the thickest part of the wood. He hoped the dragon could not break through the bushes there, since they were very strong and close. He went crawling on his hands and knees in a most unprince-like way, and at last found a hollow tree. He crept into it. The wood was very still. No crashing of branches and no smell of burning came to alarm the prince. He drained the silver hunting bottle slung from his shoulder and stretched his legs in the hollow tree. He never shed a single tear for his poor tame hippopotamuses who had eaten from his hand and followed him faithfully into all the pleasures of the chase for so many years. For he was a false prince, with a heart like stone. He never shed a tear, but he just went to sleep. When he awoke, it was dark. He crept out of the tree and rubbed his eyes. The wood was black about him, but there was a red glow in a dell close by. It was a fire of sticks, and beside it sat a ragged youth with long yellow hair. All around lay sleeping forms which breathed heavily. "Who are you?" said the prince. "I am Elfin, the pig keeper," said the ragged youth. "And who are you?" "I'm Tiresome, the prince," said the other. "And what are you doing out of your palace at this time of night?" asked the pig keeper severely. "I've been hunting," said the prince. The pig keeper laughed. "Oh, it was you I saw then. A good hunt, was it? My pigs and I were looking on." All the sleeping forms grunted and snored, and the prince saw that they were pigs. He knew it by their manners. "If you had known as much as I do," Elfin went on, "you might have saved your pack." "What do you mean?" said Tiresome. "Why, the dragon," said Elfin. "You went out at the wrong time of day. The dragon should be hunted at night." "Oh, thank you," said the prince with a shudder. "A daylight hunt is quite good enough for me, you silly pig keeper." "Oh, well," said Elfin, "do as you like about it. The dragon will come and hunt you tomorrow as likely as not. I don't care if he does, you silly prince." "You're very rude," said Tiresome. "Oh, no, only truthful," said Elfin. "Well, tell me the truth then. What is it that, if I had known as much as you do about, I shouldn't have lost my hippopotamuses?" "You don't speak very good English," said Elfin. "But come, what will you give me if I tell you?" "If you tell me what?" said the tiresome prince. "What you want to know." "I don't want to know anything," said Prince Tiresome. "Oh, then you're more of a silly even than I thought," said Elfin. "Don't you want to know how to settle the dragon before he settles you?" "It might be as well," the prince admitted. "Well, I haven't much patience at any time, and now I can assure you there's very little left," said Elfin. "What will you give me if I tell you?" Half my kingdom," said the prince, "and my cousin's hand in marriage." "Done," said the pig keeper. "Here goes. The dragon grows small at night. He sleeps under the root of his tree. I use him to light my fire with." And sure enough, there under the tree was the dragon on a nest of scorched moss, and he was about as long as your finger. "How can I kill him?" asked the prince. "Well, I don't know that you can kill him," said Elfin, "but you can take him away if you've brought anything to put him in. That bottle of yours will do." So between them they managed, with bits of stick and by singeing their fingers a little, to poke and shove the dragon till they made it creep into the silver hunting bottle, and then the prince screwed on the top tight. "Oh, now we've got him," said Elfin. "Let's take him home and put Solomon's seal on the mouth of the bottle, and then he'll be safe enough. Come along, we'll divide up the kingdom tomorrow, and then I shall have some money to buy fine clothes to go courting in." But then the wicked prince made promises he did not. But when the wicked prince made promises, he did not make them to keep. "Go on with you. What do you mean?" he said. "I found the dragon and I've imprisoned him. I never said a word about courtings or kingdoms. If you said I did, I shall cut your head off at once." And he drew his sword. "All right," said Elfin, shrugging his shoulders. "I'm better off than you are, anyhow." "What do you mean?" spluttered the prince. "Why, you've only got a kingdom and a dragon, but I've got clean hands and 75 fine black pigs." So Elfin sat down again by his fire, and the prince went home and told his parliament how clever and brave he had been. And though he woke them up on purpose to tell them, they were not angry, but said, "You are indeed brave and clever," for they knew what happened to people with whom the prince was not pleased. Then the prime minister solemnly put Solomon's seal on the mouth of the bottle, and the bottle was put in the treasury, which was the strongest building in the town, and was made of solid copper, with walls as thick as Waterloo Bridge. The bottle was set down among the stacks of gold, and the junior secretary to the junior clerk of the last Lord of the Treasury was appointed to sit up all night with it and see if anything happened. The junior secretary had never seen a dragon, but what was more, he did not believe the prince had ever seen a dragon either. The prince had never been a really truthful boy, and it would have been just like him to bring home a bottle with nothing in it, and then to pretend that there was a dragon inside. So the junior secretary did not at all mind being left. They gave him the key, and when everyone in the town had gone back to bed, he let in some of the junior secretaries from other government departments, and they had a jolly game of hide and seek among the stacks of gold, and played marbles with the diamonds and rubies and pearls in the big ivory chests. They enjoyed themselves very much. But by the by, the copper treasury began to get warmer and warmer, and suddenly the junior secretary cried out, "Look at the bottle!" The bottle, sealed with Solomon's seal, had swollen to 3 times its proper size, and seemed to be nearly red hot. The air got warmer and warmer, and the bottle bigger and bigger, till all the junior secretaries agreed that the place was too hot to hold them, and out they went, tumbling over each other in their haste, and just as the last got out and locked the door, the bottle burst, and out came the dragon, very fiery, and swelling more and more every minute, and he began to eat the sacks of gold and crunch up the pearls and diamonds and rubies as if they were sugar. By breakfast time he had devoured the whole of the prince's treasures, and then when the prince came along the street at about 11, he met the dragon coming out of the broken door of the treasury with molten gold still dripping from his jaws. Then the prince turned and ran for his life, and as he ran towards the dragon-proof tower, the little white princess saw him coming, and she ran down and unlocked the door and let him in, and slammed the dragon excuse me, and slammed the dragon-proof door in the fiery face of the dragon, who sat down and whined outside, because he wanted the prince very much indeed. The princess took Prince Tiresome into the best room, and laid the cloth, and gave him cream and eggs and white grapes and honey and bread, with many other things, yellow and white and good to eat, and she served him just as kindly as she would have done if he had been anyone else instead of the bad prince who had taken away her kingdom and kept it for himself, because she was a true princess and had a heart of gold. When he had eaten and drunk, he begged the princess to show him how to lock and unlock the door. The nurse Excuse me. I'm so sorry. The nurse was asleep, so there was no one to tell the princess not to, so she did. "You turn the key like this," she said, "and the door keeps shut. But turn it 9 times around the wrong way, and the door flies open." And so it did. And the moment it opened, the prince pushed the white princess out of her tower, just as he had pushed her out of her kingdom, and shut the door. For he wanted to have the tower all for himself. And there she was in the street, and on the other side of the way that the dragon was sitting, whining. But he did not try to eat her, because, though the old nurse did not know it, dragons cannot eat princesses with hearts of gold. The princess could not walk through the streets of the town in her milky, silky gown with the daisies on it, and with no hat and no gloves, so she turned the other way and ran out across the meadows towards the wood. She had never been out of her tower before, and the soft grass under her feet felt like grass of paradise. She ran right into the thickest part of the wood, because she did not know what her heart was made of, and she was afraid of the dragon. And there in a dell she came on Elphin and his 75 fine pigs. He was playing his flute, and around him the pigs were dancing cheerfully on their hind legs. "Oh dear," said the princess, "do take care of me, I am so frightened." "I will," said Elphin, putting his arms around her. "Now you are quite safe. What were you frightened of?" "The dragon," she said. "So it's gotten out of the silver bottle," said Elphin. "I hope it's eaten the prince." "No," said Sabrinetta, "but why?" He told her of the mean trick that the prince had played on him. "And he promised me half his kingdom and the hand of his cousin, the princess," said Elphin. "Oh dear, what a shame," said Sabrinetta, trying to get out of his arms. "How dare he?" "What's the matter?" he asked. "It was a shame, or at least I thought so. But now he may keep his kingdom half and whole, if I may keep what I have." "What's that?" asked the princess. "Why, you, my pretty, my dear," said Elphin. "And as for the princess, his cousin, forgive me, dearest heart, but when I asked for her, I hadn't seen the real princess, the only princess, my princess." "You mean me?" said Sabrinetta. "Who else?" he said. "Yes, but 5 minutes ago you hadn't seen me." "5 minutes ago I was a pig keeper. Now I've held you in my arms. I'm a prince, though I should have to keep pigs to the end of my days." "But you haven't asked me." "Well, but you haven't asked me," said the princess. "You asked me to take care of you," said Elphin, "and I will all my life long." They So they began to talk of really important things, such as the dragon and the prince, and all the time Elphin did not know that this was the princess, but he knew that she had a heart of gold, and he told her so many times. "The mistake," said Elphin, "was in not having a dragon-proof bottle. I see that now." "Oh, is that all?" said the princess. "I can easily get you one of those, because everything in my tower is dragon-proof. We ought to do something to settle the dragon and save the little children." So she started off to get the bottle, but she would not let Elphin come with her. "If what you say is true," she said, "if you are so sure I have a heart of gold and the dragon won't hurt me, and somebody must stay with the pigs." Elphin was quite sure, so he let her go. She found the door of her tower open. The dragon had waited patiently for the prince, and the moment he opened the door and came out, though he was only out for an instant to post a letter to his prime minister, saying where he was and asking them to send the fire brigade to deal with the fiery dragon, the dragon ate him. Then the dragon went back to the wood because it was getting near his time to grow small for the night. So Sabrinetta went in and kissed her nurse and made her a cup of tea and explained what was going to happen, and that she had a heart of gold so the dragon couldn't eat her. And the nurse saw that of course the princess was quite safe and kissed her and let her go. She took the dragon-proof bottle made of burnished brass and ran back to the wood, to the dell, where Elphin was sitting among his sleek pigs waiting for her. "I thought you were never coming back," he said. "You have been away a year at least." The princess sat down beside him among the pigs, and they held each other's hands till it was dark. And then the dragon came crawling over the moss, scorching it as he came, and getting smaller as he crawled, and curled up under the root of the tree. "Now then," said Elphin, "you hold the bottle." Then he poked and prodded the dragon with bits of stick till it crawled into the dragon-proof bottle, but there was no stopper. "Oh, never mind," said Elphin. "I'll put my finger in for a stopper." "No, let me," said the princess. But of course Elphin would not let her. He stuffed his finger into the top of the bottle, and the princess cried out, "The sea, the sea, run for the cliffs!" And off they went, with 75 pigs trotting steadily after them in a long procession. The bottle got hotter and hotter in Elphin's hands, because the dragon inside was puffing fire and smoke with all his might. Hotter and hotter and hotter. But Elphin held on till they came to the cliff edge, and there was the dark blue sea, and the whirlpool going round and round. Elphin lifted the bottle high above his head, and hurled it out between the stars and the sea, and it fell in the middle of the whirlpool. "We've saved the country," said the princess. "You've saved the little children. Give me your hands." "I can't," said Elphin. "I shall never be able to take your dear hands again. My hands are burnt off." Oh, God. Sorry. And so they were. There were only cinders where his hands ought to have been. The princess kissed them and cried over them and tore pieces of her silky gown to tie them up with, and the two went back to the tower and told the nurse all about everything. And the pigs sat outside and waited. "He is the bravest man in the world," said Sabrinetta. "He has saved the country and the little children, but oh, his hands, his poor dear darling hands." Here the door of the room opened, and the oldest of the 75 pigs came in. It went up to Elfin and rubbed itself against him with loving little grunts. See the dear creature, said the nurse, wiping away a tear. It knows, it knows. Sabrinetta stroked the pig, because Elfin had no hands for stroking or for anything else. The only cure for a dragon burn, said the old nurse, is pig's fat, and well, that faithful creature knows it. Oh my god. I wouldn't for a kingdom, cried Elfin, stroking the pig as best he could with his elbow. Is there no other cure? Asked the princess. Here another pig put its black nose in at the door, and then another and another till the room was filled with pigs, a surging mass of roundness, pushing and struggling to get at Elfin, and grunting softly in the language of true affection. There is one other, said the nurse. The dear affectionate beasts, they all want to die for you. What is the other cure? Said Sabrinetta anxiously. If a man is burned by a dragon, said the nurse, and a certain number of people are willing to die for him, it is enough if each should kiss the burn and wish it well in the depths of his loving heart. The number, cried Sabrinetta. 77, said the nurse. Oh, we only have 75 pigs, said the princess, and with me that's 76. It must be 77, and I really can't die for him, so nothing can be done, said the nurse sadly. He must have cork hands. I knew about the 77 loving people, said Elfin, but I never thought my dear pigs loved me so much as all this. And my dear, too, and of course that only makes it more impossible. There's one other charm that cures dragon burns, though, but I'd rather be burnt all over than marry anyone but you, my dear, my pretty. Why, who must you marry to cure your dragon burns? Asked Sabrinetta. A princess. That's how St. George cured his burns. There now, think of that, said the nurse, and I never even heard tell of that cure, old as I am. Well, then it's all right. But Sabrinetta threw her arms around Elfin's neck and held him as though she would never let him go. Oh, then it's all right, my dear, brave, precious Elfin, she cried, for I am a princess, and you shall be my prince. Come along, nurse, don't wait to put on your bonnet, we'll go and be married this very moment. So they went, and the pigs came after, moving in stately rows 2 by 2. And the minute he was married to the princess, Elfin's hands got quite well. And the people who were weary of Prince Tiresome and his hippopotamuses hailed Sabrinetta and her husband as rightful sovereigns of the land. Next morning, the prince and princess went out to see if the dragon had been washed ashore. They could see nothing of him, but when they looked out towards the whirlpool, they saw a cloud of steam. And the fishermen reported that the water for miles around was hot enough to shave with. And as water is hot there to this day, we may feel pretty sure that the fierceness of that dragon was such that all the waters of all the sea were not enough to cool him. The whirlpool is too strong for him to be able to get out of it, so there he spins around and around forever and ever, doing some useful work at last, warming the water for poor fisher folk to shave with. The prince and princess ruled the land well and wisely. The nurse lives with them and does nothing but fine sewing, and only that when she wants to very much. The prince keeps no hippopotamuses and is consequently very popular. The 75 devoted pigs live in marble sties with brass knockers and pig on the doorplate, and are washed twice a day with Turkish sponges and soap scented with violets, and no one objects to their following the prince when he walks abroad, for they behave beautifully and always keep to the footpath, and obey the notices about not walking on the grass. The princess feeds them every day with her own hands, and her first edict on coming to the throne was that the word pork should never be uttered on pain of death, and should, besides, be scratched out of all dictionaries. The end. Okay, so that was the fiery dragon, story number 6 from the Book of Dragons, but not bacon. No, I noted that too. So we have one more story from the Book of Dragons left. We have story number 8, Kind Little Edmund, or The Caves and the Cockatrice. I'm excited. So that is the end of our story for today. Thank you so much for everyone who joined me. Thank you so much if you're watching this on VOD later. I hope that you have had a wonderful time, and I'm very glad to have helped, Chad. So that is it for today. I will be here next week, same time, Monday at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, here on We Are Nerdsmith, Nerdsmith's Twitch channel. You can find us also on Twitter at We Are Nerdsmith. Where you can get schedules and updates when we go live, or you can follow us here on Twitch by just hitting the follow button, and you will get a alert when, or make sure you hit the bell to be alerted for when we go live this week. This week we have a bunch of fun stuff planned, a continuation of our what has become very rapidly our normal schedule. So today we had Reader's Corner, which we will have next week on Monday. Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, we have Shenanigans, our Spelljammer D&D campaign. I am in that playing a Tabaxi rogue named Curie. I'm very excited to continue with our story Lost in Fantasy Space, The Nexus. On Wednesday, we have Power Hour, which I don't know what I'm doing yet for that. But hang out with me for an hour at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, same place here. Thursday, we have No Brainer, which is our trivia show hosted by Matthew Siebert, which you can find at Tessa. Remind me again, is it 6 o'clock Pacific? When No Brainer 6 p.m. Thank you. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can watch Nerdsmith creators and our friends go head to head to head in three-way trivia hosted by Matthew Siebert, who is a bit of a bar trivia aficionado. Okay. I will think about this. Alternate energy systems in fantasy worlds. I will I will ruminate on this, Chad. Thank you for the concept. I'll think about it for the next couple days, see if I can come up with some good talking points. I'd like to get back to talking stuff and not just playing Minecraft. And on Friday, we have Fireside Chad at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, where Chad, who is here in chat, um, he will be discussing advice and resources for keeping your mental health in check during these times. They've been very illuminating. If you feel the need to take a look, please join Chad in chat. You can send your questions via private message, or you can go to our Discord server and find us on the mental health section where you can send questions to Chad for the show. And then finally, or not finally, two more things. So first of the two things is Friday night. We have karaoke. Nerdsmith sings its heart out. We play on Twitch Sings here. A bunch of us creators get together and just hang out. It has become a weekly tradition, and I love hanging out with folks and singing. So please come hang out. And then on Saturday, Tessa, can I please get the time for Homebrew Studio? Matthew Siebert comes back with his homebrew. Thank you. 4 p.m. Pacific on Saturday. You can find Matthew Siebert hosting Homebrew Studio, where he will walk you through homebrew creation processes for D&D and other tabletop role-playing games. It is very enjoyable and informative if you want to get the handle on how to make your own content for your RPG storytelling. And that's our weekly roundup. That's our week. I hope to see you all here next week, or throughout this week, I guess. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I will be signing off now. Please have a safe and productive, or just a relaxing rest of your week if you can. Please have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I'll see you next week. Please do me a favor in the meantime and be good to each other. Thank you. See you later.